Air Force One is in Jersey. In just a few moments on Eyewitness News at 6, President Trump will be coming off the plane in Atlantic City. We have live team coverage of the preparations for the president's big rally in Wildwood tonight. There are thousands of people waiting for him right now. Some have been out there for a few days. As you see the steps headed toward Air Force One as the president is set to come off.
He will then get on Marine One and take Marine One over to Cape May Airport. And again, Yuki, as you said, all of those people had to be cleared to get inside the building, and then those who cannot get inside will be outside where there were giant jumbo monitors for them to watch the president speak.
Yeah, and he's expected to stump for New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew, who recently, of course, changed his party affiliation from Democrat to Republican. There's still some question on whether he'll address New Jersey's immigration policy under Governor Phil Murphy. A lot to be heard tonight as the doors to Air Force One start to open and the stairs move closer to the door, and the president set to step off and begin his trip over to Wildwood, New Jersey.
Now, as soon as he exits the plane, he will be greeted by military personnel before heading over to Wildwood. Just a little background, Atlantic City is the largest and closest airport to Wildwood that can accommodate a plane of that size. It is incredibly large, and so having to make that kind of landing, they absolutely need the space. And then he will, as I mentioned, board the chopper and then head to the smaller airport at Cape May.
And I believe he's scheduled to speak around a little bit after 7. I believe that's the time that the president will be in Atlantic City at the Wildwoods Convention Center. Our Cleve Bryan is over there right now as well. He will be there when the president arrives, as will thousands of Trump supporters who have been there, once again, as I mentioned, for a few days now. Some of them even arriving about 4 days to be first in line to try to get into the Wildwood Convention Center.
Yeah, fortunately for them, they haven't had to deal with extreme weather as they've been camping out. We're also told they got about a 10-minute delay out of Andrews Air Force Base leaving and heading up to New Jersey, but they seem to be hopefully trying to make up some of that time. The Keep America Great rally tonight. 175,000 people requested tickets.
175,000, indeed. And here's the president down. He, of course, will hop on Marine One, and I'm going to imagine that's going to be obviously a very short trip over to the Wildwoods, maybe about 10 minutes or so. That's just a guess. That's just a guess right now. But he's had a very, very busy day. He was just at the White House with Benjamin Netanyahu, holding a press conference there. Of course, he's being greeted by military personnel right now as he gets set to step on Marine One.
The White House has been very tight-lipped about who is traveling with him. There were reports that Kellyanne Conway was seen, Dan Scavino and Stephen Miller and Conway's children as they took off from the White House around 5 p.m. But as far as who may have been on Air Force One with the president, that's unclear, and we'll try to find out as soon as possible.
Donald J. Trump, 45th president of these United States, in South Jersey right now, headed to the Wildwoods for his Keep America Great rally, and thousands of Trump supporters.
So many people just hoping to get a quick glimpse of the president. People at the airport, and then, of course, all of those folks lined up outside. And we have team coverage for you. We have reporters on the ground in the area and inside the convention center as well.
All right, as Marine One gets set to take off, we will return here on Eyewitness News on our set, and we are about to start our 6 o'clock news for you. Hi and good evening, everyone. I'm Yuki Washington.
I'm Jessica Cartalia. As we mentioned, everyone is waiting to see President Trump. He did just land moments ago. You saw it live right here, and he is now on board Marine One.
And as we mentioned, he's going to be on the move very shortly, and he's headed to the Wildwoods next. As the doors begin to close, the Marine personnel move away from the chopper as it is about to get airborne. He's going to hop on that vehicle right there and head over to the Wildwoods and a landing spot near the Cape May County Airport.
And of course, he had to fly to an airport that could accommodate his plane, which he did, and then he'll have to take the smaller chopper for the short ride over to Cape May County.
And then it'll be on to the Wildwoods Convention Center as the engines start to gear up there for Marine One. And as you mentioned, Cleve Bryan and Alicia Reed are there as well. The propellers are starting to rotate.
Yeah, Cleve, Alicia, and Greg Argos inside the building where he said he was there as people started to make their way inside. Very excited. Make America Great Again hats. People just saying that they want to see the president. They want to support the president. Of course, Jeff Van Drew, also a big topic of discussion as he switched.
Indeed. Switch parties, indeed. The New
Switch
Jersey
parties.
congressman. Indeed. Still, once again, question on whether he'll address New Jersey's immigration policy under Governor Phil Murphy, but we'll get those answers and more coming up within the hour as his trip is set to begin, as they get the clearance to get Marine One off the tarmac and on its way.
There was some discussion that Jeff Van Drew may have been on Air Force One coming from Washington back up to New Jersey with the president, but that is not confirmed. We did not see him coming across the White House lawn earlier.
Here's a little bit of the area we want to show you. Of course, hopped on Marine One there. He's going to fly from Atlantic City to a landing spot near Cape May County Airport, not too far away. And from there, the president will take a short drive, very short drive, to the Wildwoods Convention Center.
And that's where that huge crowd is waiting for the commander-in-chief inside and outside